Hi, Jakari staff. I hope you're having a nice summer. For those of you who I haven't seen in a little while, I miss you. I wanted to create something where I can send out some information before calling you in. I know, oh, I think a pen leaked on me. I know that many of you are doing various things, but I did think it was important to get information out to you. I know we have some of you that are still with us in on site, some of you that are with us but not on site, and others of you that I'm also including in this email for informational purpose who we hope to be able to recall back to work. And I just wanted to share some information with you so you can be as informed as you could be at this point. Everything is still changing, and we really have not made final decisions. But I have been meeting with a few staff members who volunteered, who are on the payroll but not on site, who volunteered to kind of talk me through some of the um, scenarios and decisions. And they've been really instrumental. And now it's time to kind of get ready to pass on information and make some final decisions. I'm going to share my screen and do a presentation, and then I'll be sending you this. All right, here we go. So this is our staff update. So when I think about how we want to adjust our program, I want to make sure we're focusing on what it is we do. This is our mission. It's a play-based program, strives to provide something that works for each child and family that enters our door. We use an emergent and responsive approach in the classroom and in our greater community to provide an individualized and developmentally appropriate education. And above all, we work toward educating and caring for the whole child and nurturing strengths. This means we believe in long blocks of learning center time and outdoor time, open-ended, process-focused learning, so not just the outcome, but what children are experiencing throughout, and play. We want to inspire curiosity in children. We want them to want to try things. We want to nurture all areas of development. We're not just focusing on one, we really want to nurture all. And I think that given the situation, we may have to have some things take a backseat to others, given where we are. And we want children to have fun. Our core principles on our website, we believe that families are crucial to the learning process regardless of how often or how little they are able to be physically in the space. Parents now in summer camp are not coming in. They don't step foot in our space. That is very unlike our standard way of doing things. And so we're going to have to think about how we can convey some of the same closeness that I think we achieved during our remote learning in the spring. But remember, we had already built relationships. So we're going to have to build some new relationships at this point without having that starting point. We believe that the learning environment is crucial to both how and what children learn. And we are talking about having even longer blocks of outside time. So that becomes our learning environment. And we are talking about changing our inside environment a lot. And so in that respect, we also may have to think about what that means. We believe that children learn best through play. Children still can play in our program. And they can be close and side by side. That is okay in the guidelines. We want to find a way that feels the safest for children to do that and figure out how we want to handle that. We believe that teachers need to be continuously learning from the children we work with. We believe all children are individuals working on different things. We still need to use the data cycle. We still need to observe children and then see what that means, and then change our instruction to meet the needs of our children. And we still believe children are individuals. This is something I added throughout my year at my leadership program at Bank Street. We believe our staff is vital to achieving its mission, its vision, and our school must be a safe place where staff can learn and grow in the practice. Ironically, this was added prior to COVID. The idea was just to put staff in that and understanding how caring for staff and their professional development and giving them space, use space to try things and sometimes fail and grow. All of that is really important to meeting the top core principles. So I know you've probably heard me say to children, my first job is helping you be safe, and then we can have fun. We can have fun if we're not safe first. And so that's really what the process we've been going through is trying to figure out how do we create the most safe environment. It's also a good time to overhaul things, right? And look at what's working well and what's not, because everything is turned on its head. If everything's turned on its head, it's a good time to say, this was really not working as well for us. The guidelines, which I'm going to be talking through and making new videos, I made videos for summer camp with using the guidelines, but frankly, I think things have changed a little bit. Not that the guidelines have, but our understanding and the way we're doing things have changed. So I'd like to re-record those and send those, but those are widely available and I'm sure you have them or you can access them. They are put into place with some choices and some requirements. So they use language must, which means you have to. Should is a recommended practice, and may is it possibly could be a good fit depending on your program. And so those are how the guidelines are written, and that's how we're reading them. So we're thinking a lot, and I mentioned this at the end of the year, about staffing patterns, schedules, thinking outside the box, trying to create a preschool experience that fulfills multiple needs. I'm starting with our PD in June, where you really shared a lot of information about how you were feeling. I've used that to kind of help myself and the colleagues that I've been working with move forward with some choices. Throughout this, I feel a little bit like an elementary school child standing on a teeter-totter balancing. Everything affects something else, right? So the safety of children and family and teachers is paramount. It's so important. And the fact still remains, the safest place for everyone is at home. However, the best place for children's development, for the mental health, emotional health, and the best way that our program can stay sustainable is for us to have the ability to open our program. And so we are balancing those two things by creating what we hope to be a very safe environment. But just like I told parents in summer camp, we can only mitigate the risk to the best of our ability. We cannot eliminate risk. And so that's an important consideration. I do think, from my perspective, our program cannot sustain another long-term closure without significant cuts. And so what we're trying to do is put together a program that has all of the safety measures possible, is following all the procedures, and is full enough that we can pay for all of our staffing, which actually is quite a tall order, but it does feel like a big balancing act. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing. So automatic faucets, flushers, soap, hand towels were already automatic, are in the bathrooms. There is some evidence, when we took our training with nurse Arden Corbett, that toilet flushes could put things into the air, potentially. That is a lesser, from what we understand, a lesser worry. Also, we are currently having only one child in the bathroom at a time. However, that's something that we can think about. In the little kids' toilets, You actually have to close the toilet for it to automatically flush because of where the sensor is. Um, and in the upstairs, that's not the case. You wave your hand, but easily you could push the lid, wave your hand, and then wash your hands, and the child could open the lid. We are bleach spraying the toilets in between each use and the sinks. Also, we're opening up our classrooms. They're wide open, and I can send some pictures. I have to take some pictures for a few families anyway. We just purchased mini fridges for the grande room and the piccolo room. The piccolo room is now a self-contained classroom. I mean, it has a partition. It's not completely self-contained, but it is not something we're crossing over very often. And if they have their own mini fridge and microwave, they can be more self-sustainable because they also have a hand washing sink. That hand washing sink that's downstairs, we are installing a hand washing sink in the pre-K room. This means that we still do have to share bathrooms, but in terms of being more sustainable in your classroom, there's a lot more of ability to do that. Because of all of these things outfitted in the classroom. We have extra availability of hand sanitizers, disinfecting wipes, gloves, hand soap, and towels. So we have extra hand sanitizers. Every counselor in the summer has their own backpack, and they have their own hand sanitizer in there that they can refill. They have a bottle, well, I don't know if every backpack, but we have every group has a bottle of hand soap. So in the case we go there and there's not hand soap, we have it available if we're out and about. So all of that. We are using a lot of gloves. We are using a lot of bleach spray. We're using a lot of hand sanitizer. The room layout, as I mentioned, is open. All of the soft toys, the cozy corners were removed. A lot of the materials were removed. And we are focusing on having enough materials that a few children can play, but enough, not so much that we can't clean and sanitize them frequently. I ordered 2 IQ Air Health Pro Plus air filtration systems. They're, both of them are powerful enough to do the entire classroom. And what they do is they suck in the air and they filter to a very, 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 very small particle, smaller than a virus. And the idea is that because we do not have operable windows or an HVAC system with a fresh air component, we will be able to filter the air at a very high level with these. They're very expensive filters, and they were recommended because from other preschool directors, and they were supposedly also used in hospitals in Wuhan to clean the air. So we're hoping that this is a good solution. Excuse me. We are also looking into changing out the filters in the mini splits to a smaller filter. Those are the upstairs. We also have cleaning logs for each group. We are continuing with our daily professional cleaning, and we are looking into the possibility of electrostatic sprayers. They're using these in the public schools. The idea is you spray the classroom and the disinfecting clings to all parts, not just the surface, but underneath. The way that you charge it, it goes kind of under the tables, not just on the tables, and under and all around the chairs. And it's a better disinfecting process. And so we're looking into that. So the processes in the morning, all of our counselors, our teachers for the summer are sending me a note initially, letting me know that they don't have a symptom, and there's a lot of symptoms. They don't have a fever, and they have not been around anyone with COVID in the last 14 days. So that's the initial screen. Their temperature is also taken when they come in the building. Children have a screening where when they sign in, they use Brightwheel. They click on the picture of the QR code, and then they are able to sign in. They note no fever, they note no symptoms, and not being around anyone with COVID-19. And then we take the temperature and we put in the daily health check part of our Brightwheel app, we put the temperature, and then we can put the rest of the daily health check. So that is how parents have to sign every day that this is accurate. We are limiting individuals into the building. Whenever anyone comes in, it feels kind of strange. Someone buzzes the door. We all are like, well, who could it be? Because we really don't have anyone in it but our employees and the children. The strollers are not coming in currently. And we track everyone who comes in. So Christy has done some sub days. Josephine is back with us working with Max. And there's a speech therapist for Jacob. So those people are signing in. We had the elevator repair, that person. We had a Department of Health inspector, that person. We had a fire department inspector. So you'll see those people. It's a very short list for 5 weeks of operation because very few people are coming in. I do list subs in the log as well, but we are not listing employees every day because we sign in and out on the app. The cleaning log, right now there's a cleaning log for every classroom and the upstairs and downstairs bathroom. And everything should be cleaned periodically throughout the day. Currently, our upstairs groups are in maybe a half hour to an hour a day, similar to Piccolo. Bambini's in for a little more, so you see their log filled out a bit more. Obviously, if we're inside, we need to clean more frequently. We're not going to clean if we're not there. We are looking into a disinfectant tablet. I just ordered it. However, we should know that bleach, which we use right now, the bleach spray takes about 10 minutes to work to kill COVID. So what we should be doing is spraying it, well before children come to the tables and chairs. The tablet will work quicker, and I will get back to you once we get that on how that would be. Masks are required for teachers anytime they are in the vicinity of children, which is pretty much always. Masks are also required if you're within 6 feet of another grown-up. So the only time that you wouldn't have a mask on is if you were separated in your walk-away lunch and it was appropriate for you not to have it on. This means that we really can't eat and drink in the classroom. So if you are called, I think the most challenging for that, because you do get a lunch break, is breakfast. We are going to be having our coffee, our tea, our breakfast outside of the classroom because we cannot wear a mask. If you are interested in wearing a face shield and stepping away, so if you're kind of at a distance of children and drinking your coffee with a face shield without a mask on, if you have both on and you have your mask down to do it, we could talk about that. But we have to talk about that because it is in eating and drinking that we have those droplets going because we're eating and drinking. Obviously, if you are eating or drinking, you have to wash your hands, right? Again, 20 seconds. Children must wash their hands 20 seconds. So it may feel initially that we're doing a lot of cleaning, disinfecting, hand washing over and over. Once we do it and we get into the process, it doesn't feel like that as much. And that is because we're in the process. It's okay if it takes longer in the beginning and because we're doing everything we can to keep us safe first. We're also looking into, Kate is working on looking into, I'm calling it a tool belt, but like aprons that have pockets, fanny packs, things, because one of the things that we've been hearing is we'll need things close by. If a child sneezes and there's tissues across the room, that's a little far. We want to be able to, we want gloves. Maybe we're not wearing gloves because it's not an activity we won't have to wear gloves. But a child sneezes and snot comes out of their nose. A likely happening. We glove up. We get our tissue. If we have it all in our little apron, we can do it quickly and then go wash our hands and the child can wash their hands, right? If not, we're running across the room, they're touching it, right? So we want to be able to have everything we need at our disposal nearby. So masks, children are not required to wear masks indoors, but they are required to wear them outdoors because that's considered a public space, and that is Governor Cuomo's order if you cannot social distance. And while children may be socially distanced from their group. They wouldn't be socially distanced from another. Technically, they're not a family, so we're not splitting hairs. They're wearing masks outside as well as us. Inside, we are encouraging children to wear masks when they can. We may have some pushback from parents. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, we also sometimes need very young children to be able to express themselves. Part of their development, especially with the younger children, is sharing, right? And getting the words and building their language. And if they don't feel heard as much because of the double mask, it makes it a little more challenging. We have ordered, as I said, face shields. We have disposable masks of different kinds, but we also I ordered a case of what's called the clear mask. And it is a fitted mask, but it's clear so children can see our mouths. So once they come in, I ordered one case to start. I'm going to have a few teachers pilot them, see how they feel, see if they work and they feel good. And then if we like them, we will order some more. There was either one case or many cases, which was over $1,000. So I wanted to start with one case and see how it went. So children will be in a static group, up to 15 children. As we know, Medio can only be 12 and Bambini can only be 12. Piccolo and Grande can be 15. I'm not sure what our enrollment will be, and I'll tell you about that later. So they have to be in static groups with static teachers, and we can't have floaters. Now, they do not say must not have floaters. They said should not, unless safety is in question. So does that mean we can absolutely never have floaters? No, if there's a safety issue, we will have to use floaters. But we're staffing to not use floaters. The question is only, how things go if we have to one day in an emergency situation or something happens, someone has to leave early, they don't feel well, and we don't have ability to get a sub in or something like that. There's also something called passive supervision that we've discussed with the Department of Health, and it seems okay, which is I'm overseeing and supporting if need be, but I'm staying 6 feet away and I'm masked up. And I'm not interacting closely. So you'll hear this from Arden if you haven't already. Close contact is, whether a mask or not, 15 minutes within 6 feet of a child. So if you stay 6 feet at a distance and kind of just oversee that everything is okay, then you're not actually in the class, but you could be considered overseeing and supervising. So we're going to talk about that more, obviously, when we come back. This could be useful at nap time, right? You might be able to stay 6 feet from a group of sleeping 3-year-olds while somebody takes a lunch or does something without having to interact, but you're just supervising. Only one group using the bathroom facilities at a time, and they're cleaned in between. Now, here's the thing about that, right? So we're doing great at using all kinds of bleach, cleaning it up, making sure we're doing one group at a time, except there will be a time where so-and-so, has to go immediately, even though it's the other group's turn. I think we've all done this long enough to know this happens. So in that case, we pull everyone to the side, that child goes, we wait patiently, we clean, disinfect, and then we start again. It is just a reality, but having clear bathroom times and making sure everyone empties their bladder prior to doing things is going to be really helpful. We are using ropes for walking right now. While it doesn't space them 6 feet at all, it does keep them a little separate. Hand holding, at this point is probably not the best choice. We also have parachutes for outdoor groups, and it helps them, sit on the blue, sit on the red. It helps them space a little bit while they're outdoors. Currently, they're eating lunch and snack outdoors, so it helps space them a little bit. We also are going to work on honing. We have some now, but drop off and pick up procedures so families don't bunch up, children and parents don't get close to another child while they're dropping off their child. And so kind of just to help parents be mindful. And then materials, lunch and snack is individually packaged. This obviously makes it, we're warming up individual lunches. They're coming cold in the morning rather in a warm family style thing. This is why we want the fridges and the microwaves available in every classroom so they can do what they need to do for lunch. I am planning, I've done this summer, and I'm planning on, unless there's a, someone who doesn't want this, I am planning on ordering a lunch for every teacher. You can tell me if you have a preference, vegetarian or an allergy menu or regular. I'm planning on ordering a lunch every day for the teachers. I think it's easier not to bring in food from home. The lunches are going to be a little challenging because we don't really have a lunchroom, and you can't be in the room with anyone else because you're not going to be 6 feet apart and you're going to be eating. I am thinking about, and right now that room honestly is filled to the brim with materials. You can't even walk in because we had to take so many things out of the classrooms to get ready for summer. So I'm looking to have a little station for a teacher that's in the office that's away. I'll be the only one probably in the beginning of the year, depending on when Danelle gives birth. And so there is room for someone 6 feet away from me who can have a seat and eat and kind of step out. So that's lunch and snack. Individual materials. So we have new backpacks, and we have individual Ziplocs with Play-Doh, art supplies, Legos, sidewalk chalk, things that are individual, that they can do indoors or outside. Excuse me. And we're linking kind of themes and ideas to it. So one day they're making a solar system with their Play-Doh. Another day they're making a dinosaur based on what we're studying or looking at over summer. And that's worked, I think, fairly well. We're looking for everyone to have indoor shoes. Some programs are doing the little booty things. I'm going to look into it, but right now we have indoor shoes. Some parents are sending in fuzzy shoes and things like that, slippers. However, because children go into the bathroom, that's usually not the best idea. And shirts will be specific to a child. So if they're wearing a shirt to go outdoors, they have a specific shirt. It's not just pick a shirt. They'll have individual bins and backpacks. Everything should be in a clip container. And in fact, they probably don't need to, they should just take the school backpack and not bring their own, which is honestly wonderful because the school backpack is small and sometimes they bring backpacks way too large. Limited centers materials. For example, in the kitchen area, they have a bin of materials. It's plenty. It's a nice size. It's enough for 3 children to play. And then we put it all back in the bin. So then we can clean the materials and disinfect them at the end of the day once they play with them. And it's not like we're not cleaning out hundreds of pieces of things from the kitchen like we used to have. So it's a bit more limited. So all of these things came at a great cost. The air filtration system was about $2,000. The automatic flushers, faucets, soap, and then installation was about $3,000. I just purchased the sink, the mini fridge, and the microwaves, about $1,500. Hopefully the installation won't be a lot. Additional cleaning and safety supplies, lots and lots and lots and lots of safety supplies, about $2,000. Staffing expenses are going to be pricey. Without floaters, having to bring in subs to try to keep groups separate. Remember, a quarantine is triggered by anyone who's had close contact has to be quarantined. So let's say there is a child who is diagnosed with COVID, the whole class and anyone who has been in close contact has to quarantine. So if I have a floater come over and then go back, or even if I have someone sub, that person becomes a close contact. And so we really need to figure out how to keep the staff contained. And it may be that we work on a staffing pattern that that helps offer incentives to continue to add hours in the case there's a sub need. We could have to staff extra outdoor time depending on how that goes. The electrostatic spraying has been quoted as an additional $1,000 a month, which is $10,000 over the school year. We actually already spend $2,000 a month, so this would be $3,000 a month for cleaning. Lunch is about 50 cents more per lunch per day, so it's about $5,000 additional cost for the year because of the individual packaging. The snack is also more. It's very costly to get individual packaged snacks. It's about $1,500 additional a year. And I've purchased 2 room dividers to help divide the downstairs classroom at about $1,000. I do believe I'll have to get another one, but so I think that will keep going up. The point is this, is that, as you know, we are starting the year in after having a really rough spring financially. And the summer was also very low enrollment, and we kind of kept it low intentionally. We didn't do a lot of advertising because we felt like the best thing was to start well and smart and healthy. And so we've only had a maximum of about 30 to 32 children, some days 25, in the space. So we've kept it small, but it has been still costly to run summer because we've made roughly 40% of our typical summer tuition. I've impressed upon families, I did 3 town halls this week, that we all have to work together. What we do affects our neighbors. It's really a social contract between our staff, you, and our families. There's a shared risk and a shared benefit. What does this mean? This means when we make choices for ourselves, we need to think about what risk it inserts into our group, because we can only run if we're all healthy and safe. And so it does mean that we have to think about that when we make choices. And that might be different for different people, but I do think we have to think about that. If we're with people who we haven't been with a while, even if they're good friends, are we wearing masks? Or are we not? Are we going into other people's homes? Are we having people to our homes? What are we doing in our time outside of school? And this is the same thing I've impressed upon families. We want to really try to keep the risk low, which means we have to count on everyone working together. I am asking all children to quarantine 14 days before school begins, or provide a negative test and I'm asking the same of you. So I'm calling you September 1st. So 2 weeks before September 1st, you should either quarantine, which means you're not meeting people, you're hanging out in your house and just with immediate family, or that you go and get a test. The test can take several days. I would suggest you go about a week before we begin and get that negative test. So we're all starting from the same base. So again, I'm asking that of you as staff and also from our school families. Children must stay home if they aren't feeling well, and staff must stay home if they aren't feeling well. Symptoms of COVID are wide and diverse. There is a way to, rule out going to the doctor and ruling out that this is actually not something COVID related, but we want that ruled out first, right? This means that you should get comfortable if you have a symptom, even if you know it's not COVID, going to the doctor. So you should make sure you know where you have your local, either urgent care or your physician, how to get an appointment. I know that many of you are fairly healthy and don't see the doctor much, but it's going to be incumbent on you to get your symptom checked out if you have it. The class must quarantine when the CDC and State Department of Health or City Department of Health requires, and we must be communicative with the local health department. When there's a gray area, I'm going to be calling the Department of Health, and they're going to be letting me know what the proper procedure is. We have official 30-day notice for leaving our program. That is in our original contract for the classes, but we're coming up with a basic plan for closure, because if everyone leaves our program, we don't have a program. And so we're hoping that if we do have to go to remote learning again or have quarantines, We're hoping that we can come up with a closure policy aligning with our calendar that allows the program to be sustainable. And that looks like, and I'm going to talk about this later, if we have more than one 14-day quarantine for a class, taking back some of the break days. So enrollment is down. We lost about 6 to 8 spots of families that aren't coming back. I'm hoping we're done. There is the potential to add additional pre-K slots. That's something we may do. We may add pre-K slots to the Medio group and have a hybrid class. And we're also having fewer children staying later, people asking to change the hours to leave at 12 or 3. So we're looking to decouple the DOE closure policy from our closure policy. In the past, it was used for snow days and for Hurricane Sandy. We never sort of had encountered this kind of thing. We know that we will use DOE as a data point. If they close, we will look hard at why they're closing. We also know it's a vast city with a lot of different communities, different school buildings, and different things they're contending with. So we're going to have to look internally and see what works for us. Obviously, if the Department of Health closes us, we are closed. But the Department of Education, we may not close with them, depending on what the situation is, if it applies to our group and our population. We are looking at possibly recouping days for class quarantine with break days. The way that I've presented it to families is if the first 14 days we're out, there's no anything. But if we have additional 14 days we're out, we will look to try to bring back some of the break days to recoup that. And we're also, that would include extending a week on our calendar. So staffing, we are still looking at rotating shifts in classes. That is something we talked about in June. We may have to reduce hours for assistant teachers, but not reduce hourly wages. We just may need to go to an hourly, this is written wrong, reduce hours for assistant teachers, but we're hoping actually to still increase hourly wages for assistants, even if that's the case. But we may have to reduce overall hours, at least initially. But remember, if someone's out, we would be counting on you to extend your hours, so you may be able to make right up to the 40 hours if you're filling in and helping out in your class. Because the shifts are rotating, right? You wouldn't want to work 5 10-hour days, but you might work a 10-hour day if somebody's out and you're filling in to the end of the day. We are working to find the best solution for everyone and keep everyone employed, and that's why I have been working with Stephanie, Christy, Very, and Danelle and going through some of the scenarios. There is a it's possible we'd be changing benefits, but our goal is to keep it as much the same as possible. And as I said there, and do some wage increases as much to the extent possible. And each teacher in each group of 3 will take 1 week of our break to cover holiday camp. This way our classes are the same, that we can keep, I'm gonna move because it's getting kind of darker. And I feel like I'm getting a little dark here. Oh, I don't know if you can see me better. So we have 3 weeks of break. We have December, February, and we have March, April. And so each of the group of 3 that when you're put into a 3, we'll take one of those weeks and we'll work holiday camp that week. If we recoup it for a break, then all of you will have to work. We are looking, if we have to recruit break days, to have, if we know we're going to recoup and it's just a 14-day quarantine, it's not a shutdown, we will look to give the teachers the ability to not be involved in day-to-day live meetings those days, so they can kind of have some days where they're not required to get online. Here is our draft calendar. I believe we will use September 28th for a PD day. We're going to use it if we need it. I should tell you, we start September 1st. So we are starting fairly soon, September 1st. Everyone is called in that day. So you can take a look at this, where our breaks are. Here is holiday camp break 1. Those are 5 days. Here is holiday camp 2, the 5 days of February. And then here is holiday camp 3. It's March, the end of March and the beginning of April. And that's also 5 days. You might notice I put a virtual parent-teacher conference in November. There was one. There was a virtual parent-teacher conference in February, and another virtual parent-teacher conference. Sorry. Another virtual parent-teacher conference. Sorry, I have to put the lights on. I am obviously doing this at dusk. Sorry, guys. Bear with me a few more minutes so I can put the lights on in here. So, perfect. Okay. 3 virtual parent-teacher conferences. So that is different than we normally have, but also important. Now my computer's going dead. All right. Computer's charging, and we're back. I think that's important because we're not seeing parents morning and evening, and so having 3 virtual parent-teacher conferences I think will be great. They will be virtual, so you could do them from your home, or you could come in and do them together, whatever seems to make sense. Our staff had COVID-specific training offered by Arden Corbett at the beginning of the year, and we are going to try to schedule a day in early September again. Also, we need everyone to take the OCFS or DOHMH training on new guidelines. I got it from a few of you, but if you haven't, make sure that you are looking at those. I don't actually believe they're giving you training credit anymore. I think you have to watch the video. And then we're also having extra planning time in September. We're starting the 1st, so we have extra time to get ready for these guidelines. We have to think about how we're using indoor and outdoor time effectively. If we're inside in the morning, but we only have a little bit of time, we may want to shorten our morning meeting and have a lot of focus on center time because we're spending the rest of our day outdoors. So then outdoors, if we have a long leisurely time outdoors, we may want to have another meeting outdoors. So we're going to have to look at our daily schedule and say, what makes sense for the time we have together? We have to prepare for children and families who have experienced trauma, staff who've experienced trauma. It has been a traumatic experience for many, many people in a lot of different ways, and we have to expect that. Uma's mom recently said to me, Uma, who's been with us for 2 years, my daughter hasn't gone out of the house or out of the yard, I think they're in Maryland, for months. And I'm worried about her coming back into school and how big of a change that will be for her. So we have to understand that children are coming in with different experiences, and it may be very strange to come back and be in school again. And we saw that with our 2s who are now turning 3. We saw a number of them struggle. And now it's mostly fine, but we did see that a little bit. We have to think about rainy days and inclement weather, how we're going to handle it, how we're going to adjust. I think that we've done that pretty well over summer camp, and so I think we'll keep building on the knowledge. Remote learning possibilities. So I talked with that small group of staff about breaking up several, so there's 4 groups, breaking up and everybody doing 2 weeks of content. So that in our sort of regular kind of units, and maybe I could do 2. So if 4 groups and I did 2 weeks, 2 sessions of 2 weeks, so it'd be 4 weeks for each group. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right. So 2 weeks of content for 10 months, meaning I could do 2 weeks on Welcome to Preschool, and then I could do 2 weeks on fall. Somebody could do 2 weeks on family, and then 2 weeks on winter. I don't know what it is. The idea is that if we do a few planning sessions for 2 weeks of a couple units, then we have it ready in case we have to go out, and we don't have to, we can work on just relationship building and kind of getting ourselves organized rather than creating a ton of content. So in that first week, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we may be talking about that and planning to create some of the content that we want to do over to get that done within our groups and making plans for that. So that way, even if my group goes out, well, if pre-K goes out, let's say someone was diagnosed with COVID, pre-K goes out for 2 weeks, and they're in the middle of a unit on fall, but let's say Christy made the unit on the fall, then they can still use their content. It doesn't matter. We don't need to worry about any one teacher. It's a matter of just having the content. The other thing we talked about was if we use the content that we create, so we're not wasting our time doing the planning, then we can just use it in the last 2 weeks of the month. Because in theory, if we're using it in the last 2 weeks of the month, then we're not gonna have to go out and do it again. So then it's not wasting our time. We're actually building in 2 weeks of 2 months for each group, and we don't have to worry about that. Again, we want to keep our hands free, right? If I have my headphones and my phone, I can do all kinds of things with my hands. So we want to try to find a hands-free way to do some things so we can focus on what's most important right in front of us. And in remote learning, I think it's the connection building and the open-ended, and not as much just those activities that we're sending. Some of them love them and some don't, but we want it there, but it's not, I don't think it's as important. That's the exact content you'd make at that moment. The other thing is integrating some of the remote learning into what we're doing. So maybe we do some great read alouds and we show them, or something that connects the screen a little bit. Not that we're looking for a lot of screen time for children in school, just so if we do go remote, it's not completely foreign to see your teacher in a screen. Something that also I'm noticing, there's a lot of waste. The compost is not being picked up. There's a lot of plastic products. Everything is individually done. And you know me, I don't love that. So I want to look for alternatives. I want us to think about it. We also need to find a new way of community building, right? Our families are not coming in. We're not physically together. Could we have a biweekly class parent meeting? Not class parent, but parent meeting. So, once a month, teacher gets on the Zoom and the parents can ask some questions, something like that. Just have like an hour, a half hour even, just connecting. General, not individual, but the whole group can come on. We can talk a little bit, any questions, have a little conversation, and feel like we're still connecting to parents. I told you about the additional parent-teacher conference. And then for us, how are we going to make sure we're still connecting? In theory, if I'm in a class and Danelle's in a class, we're not supposed to come too close with each other, right? And I'm definitely not supposed to get close at all to a child in another class. That's hard because we have connections with some of these children, right? And so I think it's going to be really important for us to figure out how to feel good about our connections, but also know that if I go out and have dinner with Danelle after work, but I'm not in her group, if one of us is exposed, both of us will have to be out for 2 weeks. And then we might have a staffing crisis, right? And so the idea of separate static groups is not just to mitigate the spread, but it's also because if we're in close contact, more and more people have to quarantine. There's more likelihood we'll have to close the school, at least for some time, and it's more likelihood that we'll lose parents, and there's a cascade. And this idea of equity, we talked about it a bit earlier in the year. We want to start later in the school year, we want to start a diversity and equity committee. We want to take a closer look at the materials we have, at the content we have, at implicit bias, And I still want to do that, even though it's going to be more of a challenge virtually. This is a draft schedule of Piccolo. So we utilized what we have for summer camp, and we kind of tried to think, and Medio would be very similar, but a different park and playground. And so the idea is, right now I think I have Medio meeting at Joseph Mayrose in the morning. The idea is that you'd have a morning meeting. Drop off in the park, I think, is okay for Piccolo and Medio, because many of those children have been with us before, but also a playground is quite big. Our entrance is very small, right? Or smaller. And at some point we need the child to go in so the next child, come and do their screen, right? And so we can't really have a good goodbye at the school, or as good. So I think in Purple Playground, a parent can have, take their child and sit kind of apart, maybe read a book, separate themselves, and then sign the child in. If they wanted to just take a little moment to say goodbye, the goodbye at the school, I think, is a little more challenging. You can't really have that as much. And then there'd be a playground time 2 days a week for each class. We're having a long outdoor day, and that, that might have to change when the weather changes. But we've been going to Greenwood Cemetery and Prospect Park all summer. It's worked out really well, and so we'd like to continue that. On Wednesday, I have everyone going, getting a snack at the farmer's market, eating a snack. That has been pretty successful, I think, this year, and nice, and I think all of the children can partake in that. Coming back, eating lunch, resting. I'm having all of the bathroom time 15-minute gaps. So when Bambini is out of the bathroom, then Piccolo will have 15 minutes, and we're going to have a divider that kind of gives them what I call a hug, like a kind of round divider that hugs around the Bambini. So if they're at the table, it's kind of clear they have a little separate spot right now, so that when Piccolo comes through, they can use the bathroom. They have the hand washing, and they'll use the bathroom, wash their hands, and then go back into their space to eat their lunch. And at that point, it would be a little bit easier. We are trying to stagger the rest and the diapers. We're going to consider whether we need, depending on Piccolo and how many are in diapers, we're going to consider whether we need another diaper changing station, but I have a feeling we won't. It seems like many of those children are already potty trained, so it would be a very small few. But we're going to have to really, especially downstairs, be very clear about separating the kids and separating the teachers. And that's why we're doing the different sides. And so if you see in the evening, you see this group that goes to Purple in the morning is going to Slope in the afternoon. And that's because we want them to experience it, but we can't have two groups on the playground at the same time, because again, that's exposure, close contact, right? If little Susie on the playground is sick and we don't know it, and the two groups go out together and Susie is playing with Tommy for the other group, then we have two classes that need to stay home. And so we need to send groups even in the afternoon to different playgrounds. Pre-K for all is complicated. There's a possibility of blended learning, which is 2 to 3 days in person. There's also the possibility of full-time or the possibility of remote. We seem to have gotten the answer so far that we can do what we want, so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're working on it. Because we lost some spots, we're saying we're going to consider, as I said, having Medio be a hybrid 3s, 4s. I'm also considering, because right now I have Desiree and Lauren slated for the downstairs Piccolo group. Christy upstairs Medio. I'm also considering having all of the children that are coming back that were in Bambini last year all move to Piccolo, because they already have a connection. It's an easy way to, I think, transition, and they lost out on some of their year. And then moving some of the new 3s upstairs with the potentially some of the pre-K kids. I'm not sure though if that's only if we have full, if we add some spots, or if we put some pre-K over. If we don't, and we end up going to 2 to 3 days of blended learning in pre-K, we'll probably more evenly split them out, and that will work. But it's something that I'm thinking of. There's a lot of questions still in pre-K. We're hoping that the DOE reaches out to us soon to clarify. Here is the option for the 4s schedule. So it's a start off indoor and spending a good morning indoor, having snack, washing their hands, and then heading out to the playground. The idea is pre-K leaves when before Medio comes back, and then Medio comes back, etc. And that is so they're not in the space at the same time, if at all possible. Again, inclement weather may make this a problem. They're going to actually eat lunch outside and have their afternoon, even their quiet activity outside. And you see also they're doing a day in Prospect and Slope. These are drafts. These were reviewed by our small group of teachers that have been working with us, but they're not set in stone, and I am willing to take input. So I guess, what questions do you still have? Timeline for information, I wish I could give you a perfect one. I'm hoping August 14th I can start to get agreements out to you. And definitely place September 1st on your calendar as the start date. And definitely make sure you're finding a place where you can do a COVID test, because we do need that prior to start. I have questions still about phase-in for children. We are considering, could we go visit in the 8th and 9th, the 2 days before we start? Sometimes we have them come in for a play group. I think that would be maybe less productive, because we couldn't have families in, right? So we talked about maybe doing some stoop visits, either splitting up, going as a group, or splitting up depending on how geographically diverse the kids are, and just kind of stopping by and saying hello and waving and saying, do you remember me? Again, the first day is September 1st. Screening each day is going to be important. That first day, and masks should be worn, and I'll give you some more information about that. Okay, I know that was super long. Thank you for your patience. But I did think it was important to get a lot of information out to you. I think there are big challenges, but I also think we're in the lucky place of having our numbers really low in the city right now. And so I think are able to do this. I wouldn't feel as confident if our numbers were going up like a lot of other places, but our numbers seem very steady. I look at the city as a whole, I look at the state as a whole, and I look at our zip code to inform us on where we are. I'm sure you still have questions. This was what I could come up with to share with you for now. But hopefully you will, once I share this with you, you will feel comfortable letting me know where you are with everything, and what questions you still have. Like I said, I'm hoping in the next week to start to get contracts out. I'm going to be sharing with families that I need to know for sure by the end of the day Monday if they're making changes to their schedule or not coming, because I will be starting to send out information to teachers. And at a certain point, it's just not fair to release a spot later. So hopefully that will occur, and I can start being more sure of where we are. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing from you. I hope everyone is having a great summer. And I think I'll see most of you at least very soon.